Every Halloween, the small town of Maplewood held an annual pumpkin carving contest that drew participants from all over. This year, a man named Greg decided to enter for the first time. Greg was a quiet, reclusive figure known to most as the strange guy living alone in a dilapidated house at the edge of town. He rarely spoke to anyone, but he had a remarkable talent for carving intricate designs into pumpkins. On the day of the contest, Greg arrived with his carefully crafted masterpiece, a large pumpkin depicting a haunting scene of a decaying house, surrounded by ghostly figures and a blood-red moon. As the sun dipped below the horizon, townsfolk gathered around, chatting and laughing, admiring each other's creations. However, an unsettling aura began to permeate the gathering when people noticed something odd about Greg's pumpkin. It was leaking a dark, viscous substance that pooled beneath it. At first, it was dismissed as just pumpkin guts, but as more people came closer, a wave of unease swept through the crowd. The thick, dark liquid seemed out of place and unnaturally sticky. Curiosity got the better of one brave soul, a local teenager named Jake, who stepped forward to investigate. When he peered inside the pumpkin, he stumbled back, pale as a ghost. "There's something in there," he shouted. Panic erupted in the crowd as people craned their necks to see. The town's sheriff, who had been enjoying the festivities, quickly made his way through the throng. After inspecting the pumpkin himself, he called for backup. It wasn't just a simple carving gone awry. Embedded within the flesh of the pumpkin was a human finger, perfectly preserved, its skin a ghastly shade of gray. The atmosphere shifted dramatically from festive to frantic. People screamed and pushed against one another in a desperate attempt to flee. Greg, however, stood silently in the crowd, his expression unreadable. In the chaos, he managed to slip away unnoticed. The next day, the news broke that a local woman had been missing for over a week. The sheriff connected the missing person report to the gruesome discovery, but despite a search, they never found her body. Greg was a ghost, slipping through the cracks of the community he never quite belonged to. For years, the townsfolk avoided Halloween festivities, haunted by the memory of that night, whispering about the cursed pumpkin and the strange man who had vanished along with the horror. It was Halloween night, and 17-year-old Mia was buzzing with excitement as she prepared to babysit for the Johnson family. They lived in a charming suburban neighborhood adorned with elaborate decorations. Plastic skeletons hung from trees, glowing jack-o'-lanterns lined the walkways, and ghoulish figures adorned every porch. The kids were already in their costumes, bouncing with energy, while Mia settled in with a bowl of candy and a horror movie playing in the background. As the evening unfolded, Mia found herself increasingly distracted by strange noises coming from the basement. It began as a faint tapping, like a gentle drumming, but as the night wore on, the sound grew louder and more insistent. Initially, she dismissed it as the wind or the creaky old house settling, but her unease mounted. Each time she turned up the volume to drown out the noise, the tapping seemed to follow, almost mocking her. Unable to ignore it any longer, Mia made the decision to investigate. She grabbed her phone for light, trying to quell the rising anxiety in her chest, and crept down the basement stairs. The air was cold and heavy, the silence thick enough to cut. With every step, she called out, hoping to hear a reassuring reply from the kids. When she reached the bottom, the tapping abruptly stopped. The silence was deafening. Just as she was about to turn back, she felt a chill run down her spine. Something brushed against her leg. She turned, but there was nothing there. Heart racing, Mia called out again, this time with a shaky voice. Suddenly, a door creaked open behind her. Mia spun around, her breath caught in her throat. There, in the dim light, stood a figure, a small girl with wild hair and wide, terrified eyes. "Help me," the girl cried, but before Mia could respond, the apparition vanished, leaving only an icy draft in its wake. Panicked, Mia bolted back up the stairs, slamming the basement door behind her. She quickly dialed the police, her voice trembling as she explained what she had seen. They assured her they were on their way, but she could feel the weight of something sinister lurking in the shadows. When the officers arrived, they scoured the house, but everything appeared normal. Just as they were about to leave, one officer noticed a door at the far end of the basement, slightly ajar. With a nod of determination, he pushed it open, revealing a small locked room. When they pried the door wider, A heart-wrenching sight met their eyes. A young girl, no older than 8, bound and terrified. The officer's radio crackled to life. Reports had come in about a missing girl from a nearby town. Mia was shaken but relieved. The officer informed her that they were tracking a notorious kidnapper who had been terrorizing the area. She had narrowly escaped becoming his next victim. From that Halloween on, the holiday held a shadowy significance for Mia, forever marked by the horrors she had faced. Jenna was ecstatic when she received a vintage Halloween costume from her grandmother, a stunning, intricately designed witch outfit. The long flowing skirt was deep purple, adorned with silver stars, and a shimmering black cape that billowed dramatically as she moved. The ornate hat, decorated with feathers and jewels, completed the enchanting look. Excitedly, Jenna put it on for a Halloween party she had been eagerly anticipating for weeks. As she admired her reflection in the mirror, she felt an unusual sensation, as if the fabric was almost alive against her skin. A shiver ran down her spine, but she brushed it off as excitement. When she arrived at the party, compliments poured in. Her friends were mesmerized by her costume, but Jenna soon felt a strange heaviness in the air, an unsettling vibe that crept into her thoughts. As the night wore on, she noticed odd occurrences. The lights flickered intermittently, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. Each time she looked in the mirror, her reflection appeared momentarily distorted, showing an older woman dressed in the same costume. The sensation was disorienting, but she shook it off, attributing it to the dim lighting. However, as Jenna mingled with her friends, she began to experience vivid flashes of memories that were not her own. Images flooded her mind. A woman, anger etched on her face, cursing a group of children who had mocked her. The memories grew more intense, culminating in a haunting vision of the woman being chased by those same children, their laughter turning to screams as she was trapped in a burning house. Overwhelmed, Jenna rushed outside for air, her heart pounding in her chest. The cold night air offered little relief. In fact, she felt the costume tighten around her, as if it had a will of its own. Panic set in as she struggled to remove it, but it clung to her like a second skin. As midnight approached, the party atmosphere shifted dramatically. The once festive decorations warped into grotesque forms, shadows stretching and twisting in unnatural ways. The joyful screams of children outside turned into shrieks of terror as a sudden gust of wind shattered the tranquility of the night. Jenna felt a deep, unfathomable rage emanating from the costume, as if the spirit of the woman from her vision sought revenge. Desperate, Jenna tore the costume from her body and bolted into the night, the remnants of the fabric trailing behind her like a ghostly shroud. She vowed never to return to that house, haunted by the knowledge of the woman's tragic fate. In the days that followed, Jenna learned that the costume had once belonged to a woman who had vanished decades ago, rumored to have been a witch who sought vengeance on those who wronged her. Now Halloween was a time of reflection and dread for Jenna, a reminder of the darkness that lay hidden beneath the surface, waiting to ensnare the unwary. She never forgot the feeling of being watched and the echoes of that woman's anger, a warning forever etched in her memory.